Hello and welcome to today's webinar. This is part 2 of our assessment mini-series on creating quizzes in Brightspace. Thanks for joining us today. A couple of things to note before we get into our agenda is that the Zoom Q&A box is open for any questions you may have throughout today's session, and a recording of the session and the slide deck will be posted in Brightspace community once we are finished. We'll also post any of the Q&A that we've received with links to additional resources that may be helpful. So for today's agenda, we'll start off with some quick introductions. Next, I'll share some of the features of the quizzing tool and how it can support both learners and instructors. Then there will be a demonstration where we'll learn how to build questions in your question library and how to create a quiz. And you can follow along in your own Brightspace environment if you'd like. And to finish off, we'd love to hear about how you are using the quiz tool, and we have some discussion questions as well for the end. So a little bit about us. My name is Renata, and I am a Customer Enablement Manager here at D2L, and I have my colleague here, Heather, as well, who will be supporting with answering questions that you may have in the Q&A. I'd also like to clarify a few terms before we get started. So you've likely heard of D2L or Brightspace before, but to clarify, D2L is the company, Brightspace is the product, a learning management system. And depending on where you work, your institution or organization may call Brightspace something different, but they all refer to the learning management system. And in addition, we have our Brightspace community. And this is a hub of resources where you can connect with other Brightspace users and seek out additional information on using Brightspace. And in our Brightspace community, we have a number of different groups, including the higher education faculty group, where we share events and articles relevant to using Brightspace to teach higher education. So there will be an opportunity for you to join that group with a link in the chat. And if you're not a member of the Brightspace community, we'll also add another link with instructions for how you can register for the Brightspace community. All right, so today's session is all about creating quizzes in Brightspace. So a couple of learning objectives for today. So after attending today's session, we hope that you'll understand how to create questions in the question library, to be able to add a rubric to a written response question, and also just to create a quiz from scratch using a question pool. So if you attended our last session, we created assignments and discussions. You'll notice as we go through today that the creation experience for quizzes is very similar to our other assessment tools. So this was very intentional so that once you learn how to build one type of assessment in Brightspace, you can use those same workflows to create another type of assessment. So let's start with talking about what the quiz tool allows you to do and how it can actually help make assessment more efficient and impactful. So the quizzes tool allows you to create and manage points measured assessments and maximize student engagement by having a variety of question types to evaluate learners, such as multiple choice, fill in the blank, multi-select, matching, ordering, true or false, and more. Quizzes can be automatically graded when questions have defined answers. So for things like multiple choice or true or false questions, the system can actually take care of the grading for you, which is a huge time saver. Quizzes are flexible to meet the diverse needs of learners. So what this means is you can actually customize many elements of your quizzes, including things like your time limits, number of attempts that will be available to your learners, and you can also control actually what learners see at the end of the quiz experience after their quiz is submitted. If you are using the grades tool in Brightspace, you can actually have results from your quizzes be automatically synchronized to your course gradebook. So once the quiz is assessed, that grade can automatically move to the gradebook, no extra steps required from your end. And then finally, the question library is a really valuable feature within the quiz tool that acts as a central repository for you to store and organize your quiz questions. And this makes it really easy to reuse questions across courses year over year. So without further ado, let's jump right into our course here. So I am signed in here as the instructor in the course, Regina Davis, teaching this Intro to Business course. And I am in the quizzes tool, and I've gotten there by selecting this quizzes icon in my navigation bar. Now, if you didn't have the quizzes tool in your navigation bar, you could simply go over to your course admin where you'll find all of your tools in Brightspace to get to the quizzing tool. So a couple of things I want to point out on the landing page for quizzes. So under the Manage Quizzes tab, I can see a list of all the quizzes that I have available in my course. If you want, you can create categories to organize your quizzes. I just have all of mine here without categories. But if I wanted to create some categories, I could click on this Edit Categories option and then, and then go ahead and add a category here. I want to call your attention to a couple of the icons here beside these quizzes. So this little ribbon icon here tells me that there's a grade item in my gradebook associated with it. So any results from this quiz will automatically be synchronized to my Brightspace gradebook, which is very nice and helpful. If I click on a drop down beside the quiz, I have a couple of options as well. I can go ahead and go and edit my quiz if I needed to after I created it. I could hide this quiz so that's not visible to learners. I can preview the quiz. So if I want to see what this looks like as a student, I can do that. And then I have an option to copy it as well. So if I wanted to create another quiz very similar to one I'd already created, I don't actually need to start from scratch. There's a couple of other options here which we're not going to dive into today, but we'll revisit at one of our next sessions. There's also this option to bulk edit here. So if I select all my quizzes here, I can select this bulk edit. And what this allows me to do is very quickly and easily change any names of quizzes that I have, move my quizzes into a quiz category, hide a quiz, or change the attempts from here. Under here, you'll see a different icon that I want to call out, and this means that the quiz has release conditions on it. So this means that students will only have access to this bonus quiz once they've satisfied a certain criteria that was set up by the instructor. So we'll look at how to actually add release conditions to a quiz when we build one together. And then finally, beside this Business Plan Essentials quiz, I have this key here, and that means that special access has been granted. And what this means is that the quiz has been available to either a select group of learners, or it actually has individualized due dates and customized timing settings for certain learners. So we'll also explore how to set these personalization options up when we create our quiz. I just wanted to call out these symbols that they're a quick, handy reference when we're looking at all of our quizzes here on the Manage Quizzes page. Let's head over to our question library, which is our next tab here. So as I mentioned before, the question library serves as a repository that stores questions which you can use within a course. So you can also copy over your question library from one course to another from right within Brightspace, which saves time and prevents you from recreating any quiz questions that you want to use in multiple courses. As a best practice for storage, organization, and easy access, we do recommend that all of your questions are that you create all your questions using the question library. And then from there, you can add them to your quizzes as you go. This is because if you edit a question from your question library, then you can actually push that edit to anywhere that question is being used in your course. So you might be wondering, how do I actually get questions into my question library? So I can use this import option. So you have the option to actually import questions from outside of Brightspace directly into the question library. So if I select this upload a file here, I have the option to actually drag and drop an IMS QTI compliant course package into here. And if you that's one option. And we also have an option for you to download a CSV file where you can enter your quiz questions into the CSV file, and then you will upload that file into Brightspace. And the reason why we have this template is because of the scripting that Brightspace requires to make those quiz questions work. You also have an option to browse existing questions. So when I open this up, it's going to open up and I can search for different quizzes here that I already have in my course. For example, this business fundamentals quiz. And what it's going to do is allow you to actually select questions from here, from a quiz and from an independent quiz and move them into your question library. So that's what that browse existing questions option gives you. And then finally, you also have the option to create questions from scratch in the question library. So if I click on this new, I have the option to actually go and create questions here, or I can create sections in my question library. And all of these units here represent a section in my question library. And these sections help organize your questions. You can think of them as folders where individual questions can be grouped together. And you can group them together by subject matter, by type of question, topic, unit of study, whatever you see fit. In this course, I have them grouped by unit. So I have all my Unit 1 questions together, and I have a section for each unit. Now, if I click into this Unit 1, section of my question library, I can see I have a bunch of individual questions here. I can see the type of question at a glance, so true or false, multiple choice I have here. I can see how many points it's worth, what difficulty level I've set it at, and if the question and when the question was last modified. So if you had multiple instructors in a course and the question was changed, you could see the last time that question was changed. Now, if I click on the drop-down option from a specific question, I can edit the question if I needed to. And if this question is already in other quizzes in my course, I can actually tell the system whether I want the edit to go to all of the other quizzes where this question is placed or not. I can preview this question so I can see how it will look for my learners. And then this attempts option is going to show me how many attempts this quiz question had across the course. And this will help me to understand if learners are doing well with this question. So just to show you quickly here, you can see that 5 attempts have been completed from this question. If I wanted to adjust the points or difficulty, I can simply just click on the box beside the question and I can go ahead and edit the values. So it lets me to do that really simply here from that question. And if I want, I can actually create an additional section within this Unit 1 section to be more detailed and organized if I wanted to. So I'm going to head back to the question library. And if you wanted to create a new section in your question library, you would select New and then Section. And then it's going to open up a page here where you can add in your section title. So this could be the subject matter of that section in your question library. That could be the type of question, whatever you see fit. The question text, again, the section text, this could, again, be the type of quiz question. Any detail here, you could leave this blank as well. But the sections are handy because you can actually add an entire section of a question library directly into a quiz. And in this case, you could actually choose to shuffle the questions in this section as well. So I'm not going to create a new section right now, but that would be how you could create a new section in your question library. What I'd like to do now is show you how to build a question within the question library. So I'm going to actually jump right back into this Unit 1 section in my question library. And let's create a new question. So I'm going to click on New, and then I would like to create a multi-select question. So in my question creation area here, I can go ahead and I can paste in my question text. So I'm going to be putting here any instructions for the quiz question. And I can use these features here to actually make some modifications in my text. So if I want to, I'm going to bold this instructions area here. Now what I'm going to do is make this full screen so we can see our full Brightspace editor here at the top. In our Brightspace editor, in addition to being able to change the size of the text and the color, we also have some other handy tools up here. And one of them that I want to call out is the Insert Stuff button. So this gives you a bunch of different options to create engaging quiz questions for learners. So here you have the option to insert insert something from your computer. So this could be a PDF that you wanted to lead students to right within the quiz question. You also have the option to add in a video note. So if you wanted to actually ask the question or provide the instructions using a video note, here is the option where you would actually be able to create that right in line, or an audio note as well if you didn't want to do a video. You also have the option to add in something from your media library. So for example, if you already had created a video note or audio note, you could pull this in straight from your media library right from here. And then the last one that I want to draw your attention to is YouTube. So you can actually embed a video right within the quiz. And I'd like to show you how this works. So if you have the link ready for what YouTube video you want to add in here, you can actually copy that link right into this YouTube thing and search for it here. Or you can just search YouTube. So adding in your keywords here and then selecting search. And that's what I'm going to do in this situation. And since I found my video, I'm going to click on it and click on next. I can see a little preview of what that video is going to look like, and I can click on insert. All right, so let's continue to build out our question here. So I've got my instructions. Now I need to actually give specific instructions for my learners. So I'm just going to copy and paste that text in. Again, I'd like to use some of the features such as bolding here. And before we go to add in our possible answers, for this multi-select question, I just want to take a moment to call out a few other options that we have within our Brightspace editor. So right beside the insert stuff button, which is how we inserted this YouTube video, we have an insert quick link option. So this is a really great option to be able to direct your learners straight to an area within your course to review, for example, prior to a quiz. So say, for example, you wanted to refer them to a specific piece of content within your course. You could do that by selecting content and then choosing the actual content topic that you want to lead them to. And that will embed it straight within that quiz instruction so that they can go straight there. So that's the insert quick link. You also have the option to insert an image. So you have the ability to actually drag and drop from your computer or add in a URL. And then we also have additional options here. So to add in any sorts of different types of equations within your quiz question. And then finally, the last area I wanted to point out over here is our accessibility checker. So this is a built-in tool to allow you to check if your question is going to be accessible for your learners. So once we're done creating the question, we can do that. If I click on it now, I can see that I don't have any accessibility issues detected so far. So I'm going to get out of full screen here, and let's add in some of our answers below for our multi-select question. So I'm going to add in the options here, and I've got a couple here to add in. So I actually have five possible answers. I'm going to add in one final one. And then I am going to actually select beside the correct answers for my multi-select options. I'm going to check those off to signify the ones that are actually correct. I also want to draw your attention to the panel on the right-hand side. This is a preview pane that displays how the question will appear to learners. So as you're building your question, you can actually see how that's going to look for your learners. When we get to the bottom here, we have the option to randomize the answer order. So you can select this if you want to randomize the order of answer choices. And this is an option for both multiple choice and multi-select question types. This is one of the options we provide to help reduce any possibility of cheating. And underneath here, you do have the option to, if you wanted to add enumeration to your questions, for example, A, B, C, D, E, that is an option. That's not required. That comes from these options here at the top. So I can actually remove this if I'd like to, which in this case I'm going to. And here we need to decide how many points we want this question to be out of and how the points are actually assigned to the blanks here. So there's some great information here if you click on it to help you learn about which option you should choose, but we'll just go through this really quickly. The all or nothing option allows learners to earn full points only when all the correct answers are selected and all the incorrect answers are left blank. So the learners can't earn any partial points here. This is actually the option I'm going to select, but I do want to show you the other option. So correct selections means that the points are evenly distributed across all answers, and so learners can earn partial points for each answer correctly selected and left blank. So because there's 5 options here, they're going to be worth 0.2 points per answer for every correct answer. The next one is correct answers limited selection. So this means that the points are evenly distributed across correct answers only. So the number of selections allowed is limited to the number of correct answers. So in this case, there's 3 correct answers, and learners can earn partial points for each correct answer selected. So if they only got 2 out of the 3, that they would earn that many points. And then finally, right minus wrong. So that means points are evenly distributed across all answers. So learners can earn partial points for each answer correctly selected and left blanks. But learners will lose points for answers incorrectly selected or left blank. And important to note here that the learners cannot receive less than 0 points here. I'm going to leave that as all or nothing and scroll right up to the top here for some additional options that we have. So we already looked at the add enumeration, which we removed here, but I want to talk to you quickly about this add feedback option. So this really allows learners to get immediate feedback after they complete the quiz. To reinforce their learning. So as you can see here, after each answer, you have the option to add in feedback here. So I'm just going to add in one to just show what that would look like. And so you can add in feedback to just reinforce the learning here. You also have the option to add in overall feedback here at the bottom. So this feedback appears after the learner submits their answer, and it's useful for reinforcing those key takeaways. So I'm also going to just add in some overall feedback here as well. You'll notice that there is an option as well to add a hint. So this is a great option for challenging questions that you have. In this case, I'm going to remove the hint because I don't want that to appear there. And then this short description is an option. This is just used for internal organization, and it's not visible to learners during the quiz. So what this description does, it just distinguishes between questions in the question library. So at quick glance, if you wanted to get additional details about what this question was about, you can add that short description in if you'd like. If you don't add the short description in the question library, you'll just see the start of the question. So you'll just see your actual question there, if that's enough for you. All right, so now that we are done creating our question here, I'm going to select Save. All right, so I can see that it's saved successfully in my Unit 1 section, and I can also see that it is here at the bottom here. So now I have 7 questions in this Unit 1 area, and I can see that it's a multi-select question. Let's create one other type of question, and that question is going to be a written response question. So we'll go ahead and choose that written response question. Something that I want to highlight is that instructors can attach rubrics to written response questions. So this is a really handy way to allow for a really enhanced evaluation experience for instructors to really streamline the grading process. It allows them to assess learner responses more efficiently and enhances the feedback quality. So learners are really receiving structured, meaningful feedback on their performance. So I'm going to go ahead and paste in my question text for my written response question. And I am going to actually use some of these bullets here to format my question after I've copied it in. So I want these to be all bulleted here. But I've got my instructions here. And as you'll notice in my instructions, I've said you may respond in one of the following ways using the Brightspace editor. So I've provided multiple different options for learners on how they can actually share their answer. And Brightspace allows for multiple different entry points for learners. So if I click on this Enable HTML Editor for Learner Responses, now my students actually have access to the Brightspace editor, as you'll see in this preview on the right here. And this allows them to, for example, add in a video note, just like we saw before, or upload their own files or multimedia to share their responses. So this is an amazing way to allow your learners to lots of different options for sharing their learning here. I'm going to change the default points because this is a written response question to actually 8 points here. And I'm going to go ahead and add a rubric. So when I click on add rubric, I have the option here to actually create a rubric right here. But because I've already created the rubric, I'm just going to click on add existing. And this is going to show all the rubrics that I already have available in my course. And I'm going to select this Intro to Business, Ethics, Structure, and Strategy written response rubric. So I'm going to select Add Selected, and here I can see my rubric right underneath here. If I open it up, I actually can hover over and see the different descriptors here underneath the different criteria. And I also have learning outcomes aligned to this rubric criterion. So if you're using the learning outcomes tool in your environment might be called standards, expectations. This means that when you assess the rubric, those learning outcomes are going to be automatically assessed. So a really handy, if you are using learning outcomes, adding them within the rubric is something that's really helpful. You'll notice on the right here in my preview, this is what it looks like to learners. They also have access to be able to see that rubric as well. So they're going to be able to see this rubric while they're completing the question, which really helps to make those expectations clear before they submit. And after the quiz is completed and graded, the learner is also able to review that rubric in the graded quiz to see the feedback that was provided during that evaluation. So if we scroll up here to these options, very similar to what we saw before in the multi-select question, I have the option to add in feedback. I want to call out a couple of the new things here is the option to add in an answer key. So for evaluators, this will be visible to them while evaluating the learner, which is handy. You can also add a custom response box size. So you have a couple of options here to just help the learner understand sort of the expectations for what they should provide in their answer. So there's a default size, that's our paragraph size. But if you wanted a shorter response, you can see what that looks like. It's a smaller or something much longer if you were expecting a very long essay type question here. All right, and the next thing is the option to add initial text. So what this does, it provides a starting point for the learner's answer. So for example, in my question, I'm asking discuss the impact of corporate social responsibility on a company's brand image and customer loyalty. So if you wanted to add in that initial text, you could start off a sentence for the learner to help them, such as the impact of corporate social responsibility on a company's brand image is. So this might be helpful depending on the type of quiz question that you're creating here. In this case, I'm not going to add in an initial text here. All right, so now that we're done with this question here, I'm going to go ahead and select Save. And again, we can see that my written response question is here at the bottom in my Unit 1 section. All right, I'm done editing my questions, so I'm going to go ahead and select that there, and I'm brought back to my main Manage Quizzes page. Let's go ahead and start building a quiz now. We've created a couple of questions in our question library, and so let's create a new quiz. So to do that, we'll select New Quiz, and we'll start by adding our quiz title. All right. So the next option is to choose if you would like to have this quiz in your gradebook. So I would actually like to add this to my gradebook, and now I'm going to be prompted to ask how many points I want this out of. I'm going to choose 12 points here. And now when I come back to here, I'm going to choose editor link to existing. And what this is going to do is going to create it and link a new grade item in my gradebook, and it's going to be called the name of my quiz, Intro to Business. If I wanted to choose an actual category in my gradebook, I could do that here. I'm just going to leave that and just select OK. Next up is my due date. So a due date is a soft date in the Brightspace system. So if students don't complete by this time, Brightspace is going to flag it overdue after that date and time. So I'm just going to set this for June 25th, and we can adjust the time here. I want it to be due by 4 p.m., for example. And next up is my description. So this is not required, but this will be displayed to students before they begin the quiz. So this description could be used to provide information about the quiz, such as the topic, format, or instructions. So I'm going to add just a description within here to let my learners know about what this quiz is about. So the next area is actually adding questions to our quiz. So there's a couple of options here. We can use this create new option and actually create a quiz right from scratch, from right within your quiz. However, like we talked about before, it is best to create your questions in the question library, like we just did. So I'm not going to actually select this here. Another option is to create a section. So if you want to create sections, you can create sections in your quiz that will be specific to this quiz. And then finally, our next option here is question pool. So question pools allow you to create quizzes with randomized questions. So how it works is you'll choose a number of quiz questions to be randomly presented to students during this quiz. And so we do recommend that if you're using a question pool, you've already created questions in your question library that you can pull from. So the idea is really to gather a number of questions, and each student is going to be presented with different questions from that pool that you've built. And this is to help prevent students from sort of looking at other students' work while they're doing a quiz. So let's create a new pool and just give it a name here. Because I'm focusing on my quiz is on Unit 1, I want to pull from questions from my Unit 1 question library, and I want to select 3 questions from my question library. So now I'm going to go ahead and browse here, and here I have my Unit 1. I could just select a couple from here, but I want to grab everything from Unit 1 here. I've got 6 questions in total, and I'm going to click Import. So, actually, I made a mistake here. I didn't want to actually add all my questions here. I wanted to get rid of 2 of these questions. So I only wanted to select some of them in that Unit 1, just my multiple choice questions, and you'll see how we're using those other questions afterwards. So it's going to select 3 out of these 6 questions here. Now I'm going to decide I just want each question to be worth 1 point here. So each student is going to have random questions selected for them of these 6 questions in this pool here. And you'll see on the side here, the system is just showing what that might look like. So it's randomly selecting 3 questions from 6. So I can refresh this to give me an idea of what that might look like. All right, so now that I have my question pool, I'm going to click on Save. And I can see here clearly that I have that it's going to be selecting 3 questions from 6, and they're each worth 1 point each. All right. So now that I've added questions from my question pool, I'm going to hop over here to this add existing. And now I actually want to look at a couple of other options here. So I could upload from a file, so I could bring in questions from a CSV file, but I want to bring in questions from my question library. So what I'd like to do is in my question library, I want to grab those 2 questions that we just built. Now you'll notice that it's prompting me that these questions are questions that I've already brought in through my question pool. So it's not going to let me import them again. However, I do want all my students to actually do this multi-select and written response question. So I'm going to select these 2 and import them. All right, you'll notice that my total points of my score changed. So I've got my 8 points from that written response question, and then 4 more from the question 3 from the question pool and then 1 from this multi-select option. A couple of other things you can do right here is drag and drop quiz questions to where you want them to be. So say, for example, I wanted that written response question to become before that multi-select question. I can do that as well. I also have this drop down here if I want to add existing, so browse for more questions and bring them in from my question library as well, or create a new question from here. And then I can also select my questions, multiple questions if I want to, and select more options here. And then if I want, I can align quiz questions to outcomes here. Or I can actually select this move to, and if I wanted to move both these questions to the top of my quiz, I could do that if I wanted to as well. If you wanted to create a section, you could do that as well. So if I wanted to create a new section in my course, in this quiz, this is where I could do that as well to break up the quiz a little bit. All right. On the right-hand side, we have lots of other options here for customizing our quiz. So let's go through those now. First is the availability dates and conditions. So our start date is the date when your quiz becomes available to learners. So since we're creating this today, I'm just going to click now, since we're creating this now. And the end date, this is the date when your quiz is no longer available to learners. So this is like your cutoff date. You don't have to set an end date if you don't want to, but I'm going to set one here. And I'm going to set it for a couple days after my due date. So I made my due date June 25th. I'm going to make it a couple days later at 4 p.m. And then here I have the option to add those availability dates to my calendar. So this means that the learner is actually going to see those availability dates in the calendar widget if you have that on your homepage. Next up is release conditions. So we talked a little bit about this at the beginning. If you might already be familiar with release conditions, you can find this tool in lots of different other areas in Brightspace, and they are a way to release an activity. In this case, it would be this quiz based off something a learner has done or maybe has not done in the course. And release conditions are a really great way to automate and personalize the course, your course for learners. So, for example, you could create a release condition that only lets learners view this quiz after they've viewed a certain topic within content, for example. So how we would add a release condition is we can select Create New, and then we have lots of different condition types here that you can explore. If we go to Content, I can say Visited Content Topic. And then I would be able to go ahead and choose what topic I want my learners to have viewed before they're able to see this quiz. So it's going to show all the different content topics, and I could just simply select what that is, and then I would select Create here. And then again, it's just going to reinforce what you have here. Next up is special access. This makes the quiz available to select groups of learners, or it can create individualized due dates and customize the time settings for just certain learners in your course. So let's look at how you can do that. So the first option is allow selected users special access to this quiz. So if I select this, I am choosing some modified settings here just for certain learners. So say, for example, I want to change the due date for the learner. I can modify the due date here if I wanted to, or I could just take this off automatically for that learner. I could change the availability, the start date, or the end date here. And I can do some things with the timing as well. So I can override the time limit. In this quiz, there's no time limit, but if there was, you could actually override that. And then you can also override the attempts allowed. So in this quiz, we just have one attempt. I could say that I want this learner to have 2 attempts. And then finally, I choose which learner this applies for. So as you can see, I already have some special access set for this quiz for Faith, and I can see what that is, but I'm going to actually set this up for Carlos. So I'm going to select Carlos and then click Save. And it's just reiterating what what I've set here. So I'm just going to click Save and Close. Now, the other option here, when we click special access, is only allow users with special access to see this quiz. So this would be an option if you had a quiz that you only wanted certain learners to see. You would be able to select that and add users to special access and then choose those learners here. So that's that other option for special access here. Moving on, you do have the option to add in a password to protect your quiz, to control it. So maybe you just want learners to actually enter in a specific password to be able to write the quiz. And IP restrictions. So if you know the IP ranges of the devices that learners will be using to write the quiz, you can restrict it here. Let's minimize that section and open up the timing and display options. So you do have the option to set a time limit. So if you select this, you have some options for that time. So if you click on timer settings, you can choose a couple of options here. So this synchronous option, this means that if you want the quiz that starts and ends at the same time for learners, this is what you would choose. So the timer will start on that start date. If you're going to choose this option, it's really important that the activity is made visible in the calendar so that learners know when this quiz is starting, and really make sure that learners are aware of this upcoming quiz and provide effective reminders. If you want to have a quiz more flexible for learners to take, then you can choose this asynchronous option, and the timer just starts when the learner launches the quiz. Here we just have a couple of options for when the time limit expires. What do you actually want to happen here? So a couple of options for you there as well. For paging, there are, you can choose to have all the questions displayed together, or you can actually choose to have one question per page, 5 or 10, or even add a page break between each section. So this allows you to chunk up the content for your learners and not provide everything at once. And if you do, for example, choose one question per page, you can decide, do I want to prevent my learners from going back after they've seen that question on one page? So you have some options here if you decide to not do all the questions on one page here. Shuffle quiz. So this is an option to randomize the quiz questions that you have. And then for display, you have the option to allow hints, and this disable email instant messages and alerts within Brightspace. If you turn on this option, that means learners cannot access their Brightspace email, instant messages, or their alerts if they have the quiz attempt in progress. Moving on to attempts and completion. So the manage attempts, right now I have just one attempt allowed. If I wanted to have more than one, I could choose the number of attempts I'd like. And then I need to decide how I want that overall grade to be calculated. Do I want it to be an average? Do I want the highest attempt? So those are the options that you have here. And then how do you want learners to only be able to retake incorrect questions only on their next attempt? Or do you want them to have some other options here? So just for you to decide how you'd like them to handle questions that they got maybe incorrect on the first time. If you want to have your quiz in a category, you have the option to add it to a category here just for organization purposes, or actually create a new category if you'd like to. And then if you'd like to actually receive a notification email when each time a learner submits a quiz, you have the option to do that here as well. For completion tracking, I'm going to skip over this one. This may or may not be an option for you depending on your institution's Brightspace setup. So we'll skip over that for now. And that leads us with our evaluation and a feedback area. So just looking here at this auto publish attempt results immediately upon completion. So what I'm going to do is, because I have a written response question in this quiz, it needs to be manually evaluated by the instructor. So I'm going to uncheck this. I don't want, once the learner completes the quiz, I don't want those attempt results to be shown to them yet, because there's one question that has not been marked yet, and so their grade is not going to reflect accurately. If you do have a quiz that all the questions are auto-graded questions, then you can leave this auto-publish on if you'd like. And then the synchronize to gradebook on publish. This means that the learner's grade will be automatically published to the gradebook once it's been evaluated. Finally, when published, display to learners. So what do you want them to see once they finish their quiz? Do you want them to see their attempt grade? And then what questions do you want them to see? So you might want to show them all the questions with correct answers. There's a couple of options here for you to decide as well what you want them to see. And then finally, you have some additional options for customizing the quiz results display. So if you'd like, it's going to show you currently what is being showed, but you can actually edit that view and add in a custom message, for example, to the learner after they've completed the quiz if you'd like. And you can also choose what questions you want to show them. And if, for example, you wanted to show them the class average, you have the options to do that as well. All right, so now that we're done setting up all of our customization options here, we can go ahead and save and close. And this is going to bring me back to our quiz landing page here. And I can see this new quiz that I created, Intro to Business. I can see the due date, when it's available, and the end date here as well. These little icons like we talked about before show me that this quiz is in my gradebook. It has special access required. And I also have one more thing to do. I have to make this quiz visible so that my learners can see it. So I can do that by clicking the drop down here and select Make Visible to Learners. I can also, again, preview this like we looked at before if I want to see what this looks like for my learners. All right. The final thing I wanted to show you is we talked a bit about those special access options and being able to modify those quiz settings for learners. Now we have a really handy tool called the accommodations tool, and we can find that in class list. And what it allows you to do is set quiz time extensions and multipliers, which will persist across all the quizzes in the course. So once I come to class list, I can see all my learners here, and I can see here that if I hover over this icon here, Faith actually has accommodations already set in place. So I can go ahead and click on Edit Accommodations to see actually what these accommodations are. And so this tells me that for every quiz that takes place in this course, Faith is going to have 60 extra minutes to complete that quiz. So this is, you don't need to add that special access for Faith every time. She's just automatically going to get it through this accommodations feature. So to add accommodations for someone new, you'll simply just click on the drop-down option and click on Edit Accommodations, and then you have the option to choose what you'd like here. And that's going to display very quickly to you at first glance within your class list tool. All right, let's head back to our presentation here. All right, so just a review of what we covered in that demonstration here. And before we move on to our discussion and questions, I just want to share some great resources with you. So we would like to invite you to join the Champions program. So it provides you the opportunity to receive points for attending webinars, submitting blog posts, and more. There's going to be a link in the chat for you to join the Champions program if you'd like to. We really encourage you to check it out. We also have a higher education faculty community group that you can join to connect with other folks at other institutions that use Brightspace, so you can ask questions, post in the discussions, and get new ideas on how to use Brightspace. So you can use the link in the chat to join that community group as well. And then coming up for our webinar series next month, we're going to be looking at assessment and feedback in Brightspace. So we created a quiz today. Next session, we're going to actually look at how to evaluate those quizzes. And then our evaluation in Brightspace webinar is coming up in August as well. We are also going to have a number of sessions that are starting in September, so stay tuned for details on when those sessions will be coming up. And there'll be a link in the chat there to register for these July and August sessions if you're interested. So now that you've seen a little bit about the quiz tool, we'd love to learn how you are using quizzes at your institution, and just open up the floor for any questions as well. So just a couple of ideas. We'd love to learn about how you're currently using quizzes. If there's any features that we talked about today that would enhance how you're using quizzes, so question pools or accommodations. And then also curious to learn if you've integrated multimedia elements into your quizzes and how you found that useful. So we'll pause there, and if you'd like to unmute, we can do that if you raise your hand there. Thanks, Heather, for throwing all those links in the chat. All right, I see a couple of questions in the Q&A, so I can start there. Oh, I see a couple of hands too. Okay, so maybe I can, Jubilee.
So there is a question
Oh,
from Jubilee in the Q&A, and maybe they're going to ask that, but so maybe we can answer them live. I'm working through them.
thank you. All right, Jubilee, have we allowed you to unmute here? Let's see. Oh, there you go. Thanks. Thanks, Heather.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I did have the same question that I put in the Q&A. I need to add accommodations for a specific student, but I couldn't see how to do that for a discussion post.
That is a great question. So through the accommodations feature in the class list, that's going to apply to just the quizzes within the course. But you were looking to like apply special access within discussions? Is that?
Yeah, like add extra time, extra days.
Okay. So like extend the due date, for example, or sorry, the
close date or whatever. Yes.
That is a great question. If we go to,
I don't believe we have special
yeah,
access in discussions.
yeah, thanks, Heather. Yeah, I didn't think so either. I just wanted to double check for
Yeah.
sure. You're right. Yeah. So, um, that is not an option in our discussions tool, but that is a really great piece of feedback, Jubilee. Are you familiar with our product idea exchange?
No.
Okay, so that is an area within our Brightspace community where we invite our Brightspace users to share like feedback requests and product features. So what you can actually do is I'm just have our community open here. Once you're logged into the community, we have a resources section and you can click on product idea exchange, and then it will open up our product idea exchange. And what you can do is actually search for a specific tool, for example, and then you can actually browse all the different ideas that other Brightspace users have put in. You can upvote and comment on them. But if you don't see the feature requests that you're interested in, you can actually create a new pie item, product idea exchange item in there, and then other people can upvote it. And this is what our product team looks at to be able to release different features. So this is a highly monitored area for our team to continue developing Brightspace tools. So I really think that's a great piece of feedback and could possibly already be in the product idea exchange. So Jubilee, I encourage you to head over there and maybe actually in our Q&A document, we can include that pie item if it is in here already for everybody for reference. So thank you for that. Okay. Um, Maureen, I see that you have your hand up, and I also saw your note in the chat as well. Let me see. Maureen, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Thank you. Yes, what I'm trying to find is some details on creating each type of question in the quiz area. The simple ones, faculty don't have a problem with, but there's challenges when they're trying to set up matching questions as far as how the scoring works. It doesn't seem to work out. And then multiple response questions and scoring, because there's an option to deduct points for a wrong answer or something. So is there somewhere that I can find very specific step-by-step? I've looked on the website and I'm not finding the detail that we need.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Maureen. So in terms of, and we'll include these resources in our slide deck.
Thank you.
But if you go to the quizzes area, there is create and configure a quiz. I believe there's a page that goes through, it should go through how to create each question type. This is the steps to create and configure a quiz. It might actually be in question library, creating question library questions. Yes. Okay. So, you mentioned it was the matching. So, create matching questions. And so this should walk you through step by step on how to, is this something that you've already explored, Maureen, this area
No,
here?
I didn't
Okay.
see this. I didn't see the question library part, so I will go
Okay.
check this out. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. We'll include this link too in our follow-up resources, but that should help you with them.
Thanks so much.
Of course. Thank you.
Maureen, I'll answer your question right now with that link so you can click on it and bookmark it if you need.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Um, okay, I see Paula's question. I have a math test where a group of questions refer to a specific image. Would putting it in a section and then applying paging be the way to go? I wonder, Paula, if it would be okay for you to explain a little bit more about what you're trying to do to help us understand. And I know we're at time, so we'll stay. Any other questions that are in the Q&A, we will follow up in our Q&A document that will be posted to the Brightspace community, and you'll get a link to in that follow-up email. But Paula,
Hi.
you should. Hi, Paula.
Hi. Okay. Yeah, basically just picture oh gosh, the old paper math test. So I have an image of a geometry symbol and questions 1 through 5 refer back to that. So and then 6 through 10 refer to another image. So I'm thinking just the way you showed us that if I made questions 1 through 5 their own section, would the learners still be able to see the image at the top, or do you think that should go in every question? Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you
Uh,
for describing that. I can picture exactly what you're talking about. And it's a really good question. I'd have to maybe think about how the best way would go about that because I'm not sure if in a section you can actually show like something, like an image,
Right.
like at the top of it. So if I created a section, let's say like math part one, like math section
Okay,
text.
I see
Now
what
I
you're
do
saying.
have an option to
It's
add
pretty
in an
stuff,
image here.
huh.
So, um, whoops, just wondering. I'd have to grab an image. You know what?
I,
Paula, we can test this and we'll post it in our Q&A document.
cool.
So we
Thank you.
can, yeah, of course. It's a really, really good question. I want to say that because this section text can be visible to learners, that this would probably work, but I'd want to test it out first.
Okay.
So yeah, we can follow up on that one.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Elaine, sorry. What is the easiest way to get an answer key for my quizzes? Um, I'm just wondering a little bit, it would be helpful to learn a little bit more about what you're trying to do with the answer key. Like, are you trying to print off something or Alan, I can unmute you if you don't mind. Okay, you want to print out. Oh, okay, yes. Thanks, Michael. There is a um, print quiz widget that is available that you can actually print out. Um, yes, your answer key. So that might be a good option. We can include the information for that print quiz widget in our Q&A document. Thanks for that question.